from Sean here.
An exciting extra half hour for everybody tonight.
Yeah, it felt an unnecessary half an hour from our perspective. It's frustrating that it's gone that far for us because it's a midweek game and obviously the toll that takes on players' legs. But I think ultimately we didn't deserve to win the game in extra time in the second half in normal time, should I say. We were far too sloppy, lacking real precision. Didn't do what that period of the game really required of us, so it needed the extra half an hour. And I thought post a couple of changes and tweaks, we approached that extra time period better, more structured, more organised, and the chance comes as a consequence of that. And I think it's probably this isn't a pat on the back for the coaching staff. It's just the nature of the timings in those situations. That the goals come immediately after the periods at which we can get the players relatively organised, and I think it's so easy in those situations to lose organisation, and everyone feels that you can score at every single opportunity, and that's what we fell into in the second half. So a long-winded answer to your question, but it was an unnecessary half an hour for us, but one that I'm really pleased that we approached in the right way, and ultimately we've got what of course we deserved.
You get the equalizer early in the second half. How much of that is based on the yellow to Will, and how much of that is just changes in Sparky?
No, as I say, we wanted to. There was no reflection performance-wise on the three players that came off at half-time. I felt like it was a game that obviously the second half demanded something very different to what we'd anticipated the game being beforehand. So it was very obvious that we were going to need real quality between the lines. We didn't need two more defensive-minded sixes on the pitch, and I think the changes that we made at half-time and again the reason I make them at half-time is because it's easier to organise the players in those instances. So it's far easier to organise three changes at half-time than it is to wait to 55, 60 to do something that you're going to inevitably do anyway. So I felt like that paid dividends, and as a consequence, the goal comes from not any grand drawn-out play, but just good structure, width, more patience on the ball, and attacking the areas that are inevitably going to arise. And I think you'd say the same for the goal that the second goal that ultimately puts us in front and wins us a game. It's through more discipline positionally. There's more structure, players are in the right positions, and we take more passes, and that's what the game needed. And I think had we found that in the second half, we'd have won in normal time much more comfortably had we maintained how we looked in the first 5-10 minutes post half time, should I say.
Eric, the Open Cup is such a big, kind of massive tournament here, just in terms of how many teams are involved. Like, what did you know about it before you got here, and what have you learned about it?
Very little about the history. Obviously, I knew the existence of the Cup competition, and I think I'm sure Dennis would say the same, and the guys that come from the UK. The Cup competitions traditionally in the UK are so important. They're seen in such a... There's a real magic to them, and they're seen in that way by supporters, and I think that's probably reflected in the way that people talk about this competition. And I wanted to treat it with the utmost seriousness over the course of this season as a whole. But obviously, we've approached the first two games in a way where we sort of prioritise balance and look at the fixture congestion. But I think today, with the team that was picked, it reflected the fact that we wanted to make some sensible changes, but we wanted to take it really seriously. And I love the fact that we've got a home run to the final, across the semi and the final, and I said to the players beforehand that you could play 10 years in MLS and not win a trophy, and this is a really good chance for us to do so, and it's a really good chance for the club to do something it's not done before. So I'm really glad that we're here. I'm really glad that now we've got a long wait, but an exciting wait until a semi-final at home, and I hope that we can fill the stadium and make it feel like it does on a home day in MLS, because it really does help that atmosphere. But I will say to the fans that were in tonight, I'm not sure how many were in, but it felt like it was more than I would say that the actual number was. They supported us really well and created an atmosphere at the end that I think had a tangible impact on how it felt on the pitch.
Obviously, there were a lot of empty seats tonight. Will you be surprised if there's empty seats at the semifinal?
I would really. I can't pretend to know the situations of the individual fans that are normally there, but I'd like to think that the atmosphere that was created tonight by a few really helped, and I think if it was full for the semi-final, I think it will be a real occasion, because as you've alluded to, cup games have a different feel to them, and I think you felt that from word go tonight. So I really hope that we can fill a stadium and make it feel like it does on a home match day, because for sure that makes a difference, and that's not just me saying that. We talk about that a lot. If we can get that connection with the crowd playing here, it makes all the difference in the world. So we want to see that for sure.
Kelvin has struggled at times in MLS games, but Cup games, he's really been a leader for you guys. What did you see in his difference between the two tonight? Obviously, he scores the go-ahead goal and then has a couple of chances after that before his PK.
No, I think he did great, and that if there is a silver lining to there being an extra half an hour, it's that he gets a chance to get another goal, a couple of really good moments on top of the moments that he had. He looked fit, he looked strong, he looked explosive, and I think, given the stop-start nature of how his season's gone, you can see where maybe the lack of explosivity comes from time to time. But ultimately, I think tonight he looked like the player that we all know he is and really threatens to be most of the time. But tonight that was realised. And obviously, when he's at his very best, he is one of the best forwards that you'll find at this level.
I know you've had to sort of carefully plan out everybody's minutes for weeks like this. How much has this sort of blown a hole in that?
Yeah, I can't pretend it's gone perfectly to plan there, but I think we were able to make 6 changes. We were able to spread the minutes across all players involved there, and I think ultimately for the players that come on half-time and onwards, it probably ends up being what is a load that reflects a difficult training session on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. So I think at least there, we've got 6 players going into the game fresh. We got the subs coming that came on at half-time. Came off at half-time, going in fresh, and I think if you look at players like Carlos and Joe, obviously it took its toll at the end, and you could see that it was very clear that they were both struggling. But I think those 2 guys in particular have got a real knack for being able to go again, particularly Carlos. So I've got no worries across those guys, and I think the guys that came off, there were a couple of knocks, but I don't think there was anything too severe. So fingers crossed we roll into Saturday, and also the momentum helps, energy helps, winning games helps. So it's a far easier game on Saturday for having won the game than it would be for having slogged 120 minutes and then lost. So I think there's more good than bad there for sure.
What's your view on the penalty against Will?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of layers to it, and I can't pretend to know exactly what happened and why, but it felt strange to us at the time that there was effectively a second corner given, but I think the rationale was that the incident took place prior to the ball coming in, or I'm not sure whether the whistle had been blown at that point, and I haven't looked back at the penalty kick in detail, but I don't think there were many complaints from the staff on the bench on our side, so probably justified, but I think it was more to do with whether there should have been another corner or not, but perhaps there is a very strong rationale for that, but it's, again, easier to stand here and talk about those moments when you're the winning head coach.
Eric, it looked like, again, trying to survive late in games. What is that kind of continuation? Again, we talked about it after Red Bulls. We talked it after last week. What's Dallas? What's kind of the...
Yeah, I do feel like there is an inevitability to that to an extent. I mean, we are not a team that is in the habit of closing games out by being the dominant possession team. And I think that you can get drawn into maybe a false narrative around that, in the sense that the goals that we have conceded late on, they live long in the memory, but we've also seen out countless games defending in that way, and I think the players they almost find a bit of a default there, but I do feel like it was crying out for us to show some more composure in certain moments. I think we probably made some poor decisions as to when to kick long, when to play short, probably got it backward on a couple of occasions and found ourselves also somewhere in between both, where we're kicking long, not being set to pick the second balls up, or we're playing short and not being well connected enough. And then we did lack the composure to see out what should have been a relatively comfortable finish, I would say. So that's something that we are for sure working on, and I think in general you're seeing improvements in that sense. But I'm not keen to criticise the players for falling into that mode, because I think you've seen at the end 120 minutes, there's 11 players on the top of the box seeing the game out with their lives, and I think that's a quality that I'd rather have as opposed to pick at and criticise, because I feel like more often than not that gets us what we need. But there is an evolution there for sure.
Do you think you'll be getting a call from Kane Rizvanović's mom because he was the only kid that didn't get to play tonight?
Yeah, we're scratching our heads a little bit when we got down to Nico. It's not often that you're in that situation, if ever. But I think the subs did great for us, and I think each of them did what was called upon. So, yeah, I'll apologise to Kane's mum if that arises. Good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Love Rob.